Hello there, and welcome to another episode of the Red Delta Project podcast. In this week's episode, we're talking about the importance of immediate gratification for your long-term success and how it helps propel you forward rather than hold you back. We'll also be discussing the difference between being fit for life versus being fit for a specific sport and activity and where they're different and the same. Be talking about a unique exercise that, even though it looks like it has nothing to do with your lower body, can make a huge difference in the quality of your pistol squats, shrimp squats, lunges, and other unilateral lower body progressive calisthenics. And I'm also going to tell you about my latest piece of fitness equipment for calisthenics training that you can probably find in your own backyard. Hi there, my name's Matt Schifferly, founder of the Red Delta Project and author of the books Fitness Independence and Smart Bodyweight Training. So let's jump right into today's topic, shall we? First up, immediate gratification. This is something that often gets a bad rap within our fitness culture. There's a lot of stuff out there, coaches saying delayed gratification is the way to go about it. And oftentimes in success books for business and other types of self-improvement books, you hear this idea of don't give in to immediate gratification and how that's kind of the downplay for everybody who wants to achieve anything from weight loss, building muscle, making money. And a lot of times it kind of goes hand in hand with this supposed study that happened. I think it was a Harvard researcher where they put these children under this, what they call the infamous Marshmallow Experiment, where they took these children and they gave them a marshmallow and said, now, if you eat that marshmallow right away, then nothing happens. But if you're willing to wait a few minutes while I go and get something and then come back, if you don't eat that marshmallow, then by the time I get back, you get to have 2 marshmallows. And supposedly the way this all panned out was they followed up with the kids who ate the marshmallow right away versus the kids who were able to delay gratification. And the prognosis in the studies that you always hear about is that whoever ate the marshmallow was doomed for a life of short change, instant gratification seeking, more likely to drop out of school, more likely to get pregnant and do drugs and not make as much money. And the kids who didn't eat the marshmallow right away were able to delay their gratification. And that was correlated with everything from having more success in careers, more healthy relationships, on and on and on. And this story keeps going around in our fitness culture of delay gratification if you want to be successful. But especially lately, I'm really coming to question this because back in the day when I was starting to just get into fitness, I kind of had this notion of like, you've got to push yourself to do things you don't want to do. You've got to delay gratification. You have to basically deny yourself, live in a world of deprivation and denial. And that certainly does have its merits. It is very good to have that strength and that discipline built in. But in my case, at least, what I often found was that when I always told myself, you can be comfortable and have fun and enjoy yourself tomorrow, the problem was I kept always saying tomorrow, and tomorrow, of course, never comes. It's like those signs that you see sometimes in restaurants and bars where they say, free beer tomorrow underneath it. So, of course, every time you read it, it means free beer tomorrow. Well, that was kind of what I was doing with my ability to like enjoy my mom's chocolate chip cookies or having a day off from working out. And for me, it usually meant that the more miserable I was and the harder it was for me to delay gratification, I figured that meant that I was even more on the right track. And so I was digging myself into this hole of deprivation. And as I've talked about before, what this does is it builds on stress. Physical stress, mental stress, emotional stress. And the thing about stress is we all have a finite capacity for it. Everybody has a breaking point eventually. It could be a while from now, it could be short, but everybody breaks. And the longer you wait and deny yourself, the greater the fall would be. Because if I went for a long string by denying myself any kind of food that I wanted to eat, when I did break, my binges were legendary, huge, like 3 pints of Ben & Jerry's in a single sitting kind of thing. But if I didn't deny myself nearly as long, and I only went a few days without eating foods that I wanted to eat, then I would have like half a pint of Ben & Jerry's sort of deal. So it really stands to reason, should we really look into this idea of instant gratification? Is it really that bad? Or does it play a very important and healthy role in helping one go forward? And the reason why I bring this up is because I've also heard a lot of anthropologists and researchers who study the human condition outside of fitness and success to say that this whole idea of planning for the long term is not the most modern way that humans behaved. Because back in the day, like, we didn't often think, what do I do for the next 10 years? It's, how do I find food to feed my family today or during this week? Short-term decision-making was usually our default as ancient human beings. And only recently, this notion of start making sacrifices and hard decisions today for a payoff years in the future is kind of this weird novel idea that doesn't really have that much of a primal urge to it. And the reason why a lot of people have trouble doing this whole delayed gratification thing is because our primal brain doesn't understand there's a reward years down the road. It's more of, I want to do something that feels good now. And I say, instead of fighting this sort of thing, let's use it. Like a lot of things in fitness independence, we can use our base appetites and instincts for our advantage rather than our disadvantage, and that can propel us even more forward and faster. So in the idea of instant gratification, my argument is use habits that can have a long-term payoff, but also can provide some short-term reward on a regular basis. So let's give a workout for an example, right? Let's say, all right, I'm trying to exercise, I'm trying to work out so that I'm going to be able to still ski when I'm at retirement age, and I'm going to lose the weight I want over the next several years, and I don't want to get sick and injured at some later date. Okay, great. All long-term goals, very good. However, sitting yourself down into a workout can be a very stressful short-term thing. And a lot of times people don't have or have a lot of trouble finding the motivation to make themselves work hard in the short term and say, well, I'm sure it'll pay off someday. But what if someday doesn't come? Your stress is building up right now. So what I recommend is use things that have that short-term payoff. So instead of doing an exercise that you really don't enjoy doing, like let's say it's boring as hell for you to run on a treadmill in the gym. It's like, okay, but what if you enjoy hiking outside? And the moment you get outside, you're in nature, you're breathing fresh air. This used to be a buddy of mine and I, we would go hike Mount Mansfield up in Vermont. And like in the first 10 minutes or so, we'd be hiking, we'd be all full of like, oh God, this feels so, oh geez, I had to get out of the house. Oh, it feels good to be around Mother Nature. We would be making like these guttural noises as if we were enjoying a fine meal or something. It's just, oh, it feels so good to be moving. It feels so good to get the blood flowing kind of thing. We would be experiencing a lot of short-term benefit to that. And yeah, sure, we're burning calories and we're helping to improve our cardio. And over the course of several summers, we got better at hiking Mount Mansfield and long-term gains were abound. But we also did it because it's like, dude, I have got to get out on the mountain today. I'm driving myself crazy here in the office. So don't deny yourself short-term gratification. Use things that have both short and long-term rewards. But don't think that I've got to be miserable in the short term in order to make progress and benefits in the long term. You can have both, and I encourage you to try to find methods that will give you both. Now, being able to find both short and long-term gratification is also a key component in what this idea between being fit for life versus being fit for a sport and activity. this is an interesting thing that's come up, especially recently, because over the past couple of weeks, I've been really kind of struggling through life here, because what ended up happening was I moved from Colorado here to New Hampshire. And back in the East, I'm feeling great. Okay, back in New England. But there was a very big problem with this move. And that was the first apartment that we arrived at was, well, let's just say I'm not even sure it was fit for human habitation. I mean, it's just a really, really bad place to live. And even I can live in a lot of different, like if there's like scratches on the wall and cracks in the front, I'm like, yeah, it's okay. It's no big deal. Within 24 hours, I was like, we have got to get the hell out of this place. This is a very bad place to be living. So within the same time, after driving all the way across country, 3 days in the van, driving myself crazy, eating nothing but fast food, not getting any exercise, we got to pack up all our stuff all over again, find another apartment, and move again. I mean, moving itself is stressful, and we've done it like twice within 10 days here. I'm just driving myself crazy. But the thing is, I keep reminding myself that if I wasn't in the shape I'm in now, if I wasn't disciplined in my habits, this whole thing would have been 10 times harder. And this is what they talk about where it comes to being fit for life. About when life throws you a curveball, can you weather the storm, or do you crumble mentally, physically, and otherwise? I'm reminded of a story from one of my mentors, Zach Evanesh, when he talked about how he was, quote, fit for life when in Jersey they had to weather a hurricane, and how his training and his discipline and his mental toughness helped him through literally to weather the storm. And as I'm saying this, the Carolinas have just gotten hit with another hurricane, and I can't help but think to myself, who down there is crumbling and succumbing to the pressure, and who is basically being able to weather that storm? And there's no doubt that being in shape has a lot of carryover to that. Being able to push yourself physically and mentally in things like working out and the discipline of eating well and everything carries over to times when you have to step up. Because when you build up the habits during your luxury time of, I know I don't have to ride my bike 50 miles, I know I don't have to do these 100 push-ups, but you push yourself to do it, that gives you the capability to handle the stressful times that life inevitably is going to throw at you. And I know I've said in the past that when we humans, we modern day humans, we don't have a lot of need to be fit for a specific sport. Like, I don't need to be able to lift 500 pounds. I don't need to be able to run a 5-minute mile. It's not part of my job. It's not something I need to do to survive. But the luxury of having strength and endurance and toughness comes in handy when life throws us these curveballs. Now, that's being fit for life. That's when you have those mental and physical fortitudes that you can rely on when things get tough. Now, being fit for a sport is very different. Being fit physically, especially for a particular activity, is always very specific to that activity. And when you're fit for that, you're fit for that activity, but there's always a difference between that activity and everything else. There's no such thing as being strong for everything or fit for anything that life throws at you physically. Like over the course of all these moving, right? I've been going up flights of stairs, carrying boxes, been hunched over, assembling IKEA furniture and stuff. And a couple of nights into this whole fiasco, I just kind of got up a little funny and my back seized on me. And it was just like, oh, geez, I could barely move. It felt like someone was taking a vice grip to my back. And I don't quite know what was going on. But the fact remains that I wasn't in very good shape for the very activities that we were doing. I wasn't in shape to sit in the truck, drive it for 15 hours 3 times a day. Like, I wasn't in shape. Every time I got out of that U-Haul truck, it felt like every joint in my body was screaming. I wasn't in shape for that. And when it came to loading all these boxes and everything, I'm not doing this as a job. Like, I haven't been delivering heavy things to up 3rd floor apartments and everything. So from a physical standpoint, I'm not in shape for what we were just doing. So my body was reacting to that. And that's why it's important to recognize that you can't be in shape for everything. So it's very important to be in shape for the things that are important to you. Like, I can't run for crap. Like, if you said, hey, Matt, let's do a half marathon, I'd be like, sure, let me just hop on my bike here. They have a no bike rule? Oh, damn. I can't run very well, but I can ride my bike very well because I'm conditioned at riding my bike. There's no such thing as just having strength for anything. There's no such thing as being endurance for everything. For me to run 5 miles is a huge monumental feat. For me to ride my bike 50 miles, that's not that hard. So when you are picking your objectives, if you want to be fit for life, almost anything is going to work. Anything that tests you physically, mentally, and emotionally is going to help you weather life storms. You don't have to be a bodybuilder or a CrossFitter or a calisthenics guy. You do what you want to do because it's more general. Anything that tests you will help you prepare for life. But when it comes to preparing for a physical activity specifically, like in a sport, make sure you practice that sport specifically. Don't run 5 miles if you are like a linebacker for a football team. You don't run 5 miles in a football game. So make your training as specific as possible. All right, on to topic number 3 here. The weird exercise that's going to greatly improve your lower body training. And this is something that I've gotten a lot more proficient at lately, especially with my lower body. My joints feel better. My mobility has gone through the roof. I am solid as a rock with my pistol squats. You can check it out on my Instagram. It was one of my last Instagram posts, me doing my pistol squats there. But the thing is, a lot of my success and my improvement isn't specifically coming from that activity. And I know I just said, yes, you have to be very specific in what you're doing, but it also pays to shore up weak links. And when it comes to your lower body training in general, whether it's calisthenics, weight, or whatever, but especially when it comes to body weight, one of the weakest links that holds a lot of people back are the muscles in the lateral hips. Your lateral hips. This is because your gluteal complex, right? Your glutes. A lot of people, when you say the glutes, they think like the cheeks, your butt cheeks, what touches down when you sit down into like a hard back chair. Yes, those are your glutes, your maximus, your gluteus maximus. But that is not all of your gluteal complex. Your gluteal complex includes your gluteus maximus, but it also includes your gluteus medius and minimus. And what these muscles do is they wrap around even to the front of your hips. So the next time you're like drying yourself off out of the pool or after a shower or something, wrap a towel around your waist from back to front. And the motion and the coverage that you have around your hips from the towel, that's what your gluteus complex does. And because we sit so much, and because we don't use too many squats even when we are working out, what ends up happening is a lot of the muscles in our gluteus complex are still underdeveloped. We don't have a good mind-muscle connection with the medius and the minimus and stuff. So what ends up happening is when we do lunges and squats, we don't have nearly the stability and mobility in the hip that we really need to do the exercise well. And this brings about all sorts of issues. It comes to a point where we can't squat very deeply. We can't squat with a lot of stability. A lot of times, if our hips aren't very stable, it asks the knees to take over the stability for the hips. And, well, it's basically like second string high school quarterback trying to replace an NFL quarterback. It's football season now. That's why I got the football analogies going on. But the bottom line is the knees have to step up and they're not nearly equipped for the job. So then we have knee pain. We've got all sorts of other issues coming about. And it all comes from the lack of lateral stability, mobility, and strength. So here's one of the weird things that you can do to really maximize your ability to use those muscles. Side planks. Side planks, I talk about this a lot in my second book, Smart Bodyweight Training, the lateral chain of the body. And a lot of times lateral movements are usually thought to be an oblique exercise, something for the side of the abs, maybe a little bit in the side of the legs and so forth. But side planks particularly place a lot of resistance in the lateral part of your gluteal complex. And there's progressions in the book and everything. I won't go too much into it. I'll be making a video on it tomorrow and stuff. But the point is that practicing the side planks, particularly when you're pressing your bottom foot down into the ground as hard as you can, engages the lateral hips to a very high degree, yet very safely. It's very safe on the joints, very safe on the knees, builds up some of that lateral stability, and this in turn carries over to a lot more stability and strength lateral portion for your unilateral exercises, like your lunges, your pistol squats, your shrimp squats, and so on. So I recommend get on those lateral chain exercises, those side planks especially, practice them 2, maybe 3 times a week. And within a few weeks, I promise you're going to have a very noticeable difference in the quality of your lower body calisthenics training. And where can you be training? Well, there's a new little obsession that I've kind of developed since I've moved back east here in Nashua, because out in Colorado, one of the things that's unique about Colorado is a lot of open spaces. There's not a whole lot of like trees that we can really access. But now that I'm back east, I'm kind of like around trees a lot more, specifically maple trees. And of course I recognize that as I'm talking this, you may be listening to this, you're on a cruise ship in the middle of the ocean. You're like, dude, I don't have any trees here. But this is my newest little obsession, is finding suitable calisthenics trees. And the reason why I like this is, one, it's outdoors. And there's great benefits and advantages to training outdoors rather than inside all the time. There's also the benefit to having natural elements that your hands are holding onto. There's a very different sort of feel and relationship that you form with your environment when you're grabbing onto something like a tree branch or putting your hands on grass or dirt or even asphalt that you don't get when you're in a nice polished environment like in a gym. Now, that's not to say that working out in a gym is too sterile and artificial or something, but over the past couple of weeks, I've been on the road. I haven't been able to use my bodyweight master. So I'm literally just like walking around in hotel parking lots going like, where's a tree that I can do like hanging exercises off of and pull-ups and stuff. And it's amazing when you start looking for decent trees to do stuff off of, it's like they come around all over the place. It's like, wow, they're all over the place here. One of the things that I've thrilled to find is there's this little walking path between the neighborhood that I moved into and like a little shopping center where there's like a grocery store and stuff. And inside this path, it's like this calisthenics natural world heaven. Like the trees there were almost made for doing calisthenics. There's even one tree that has 2 branches that branch off that kind of fork, and it's at the perfect height that you can do dips off of. It's fantastic. And after spending a workout or 2 in this natural environment, it's like, dude, what do I need a gym for? I don't even need a suspension trainer. These trees are amazing. The branches are just the right height. They're just the right thickness. They're not too hard on the skin. So I encourage you, explore your natural environment and look for trees that have branches you can use. Something that's just high enough that you can hang from, something that's relatively parallel to the ground, something that maybe doesn't have too many leaves or something in the way. And of course, I recognize that some people, you're just not going to have the kind of trees in your environment that you're going to be able to use. But if you can find a couple of trees around your environment, your home or office, that offer this, you have found gold. And there's nothing better. You add in a suspension trainer or something, and whew, that's all you need to have a great high quality workout. And it's going to have a feel and a benefit to using that type of natural equipment, if you will, that you just can't have at a normal gym. So there you go. There are my 4 topics for you today. Check out my books at Amazon. Don't forget Smart Bodyweight Training and Fitness Independence. And if you could please, if you want to help support the podcast, do leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Podcast, wherever you get your podcast directory from. I know it's simple, but it really helps me out, helps out the podcast immensely, and it really is greatly appreciated. Thank you very much for listening. I'll talk to you guys next week. Till then, be fit and live free.